Tim, and Twisted from OpenFireGaming. We haven't had a lot of videos up in a while, and we're going to try to get some stuff back up. We're doing a couple test videos out right now, and we've been playing around a lot of indie titles, and one of them is Trine. We're going to have our review today to see if this indie title has what it takes to rock the indie circuit. Now, by design, Trine is a puzzle platformer, which is something we haven't seen in a while. And Twisted was talking about it in one of the videos, and it was straight puzzle platforming, puzzle after puzzle after puzzle, where you run around and you try to collect experience, and you have to make sure that you don't die or fall in the lava or get killed by a pesky skeleton. Trine, the catch of Trine is that there are 3 characters conformed into one, and you have been 3 people trying to steal the Trine, and then you will get fused by the Trine, and the whole point of the game is to get to the end and release yourselves into the 3 separate people again. So what you have to do in Trine is then when you're running around, you also have to keep switching between characters, and this is where the puzzle platforming elements really kick in. When you are switching characters all the time, you can solve different puzzles and use different abilities. As the wizard can draw platforms and crush skeletons and move people around, the rogue can use their grappling hook to fly around different areas, and as the knight can use his sword and shield to do most of the grunt work on the ground. A lot of Trine has to do is just getting from left to right across the screen, side-scrolling your way to the end. Sooner or later, the RPG elements kick in, where you have to level up certain abilities for all the different characters, and this allows to get a hold of a playstyle that you want to play as maybe if you're the warrior and you want to do a lot more of the fighting, you would level up your sword and shield level, as if maybe you wanted to do a lot more of the puzzle solving as the warrior, you can level up your picking up items and throwing them and your ability to move giant objects around. The ability to change your different ways of solving puzzles is greatly rewarded in Trine, because while one player might cross a gap one way, you may also be able to cross it the other way. There is a multiplayer component to Trine where up to 3 players can plug in and play as separate characters, which doesn't really make quite sense for the story and concept of the game, considering what's going on in the, you have 3 characters fused into one, but apparently now they're not. Doesn't make quite sense, but then again, it doesn't really matter, because the offline fun with the multiplayer is well rewarded and a lot of fun to play with your friends.
So in Trine, you end up having, well, like every game, a story, for the most part. Trine's aspect is you enter in and you find a kingdom in ruins. Something horrible has happened. Its light and giving grace has disappeared. Its king has died, and human nature has taken over, and people are infighting over who will rule the kingdom. And then somehow, one way or another, skeletons start showing up, and the kingdom falls to ruins. Thief shows up trying to steal some treasure that's supposedly still hidden within the castle. Shows up and finds some magical instrument and gets stuck to it. Next comes a wizard, and then eventually a knight. And they all get stuck together, and they become part of this thing called the Trine, in which their souls have now been bound together in this epic quest to essentially save the kingdom and to find this artifact, the Trine. Thus, the whole try aspect in 3 players. So, the overall story is not that bad. It's not the most immersing thing you'll ever find, but it's enough to tie the game together. In that way, it portrays the story a little differently, because instead of unlocking it as you go along, it's given to you in chunks and segments, switching between level to level. A unnamed narrator shows up and starts talking to you about what's going on and what they're about to do and what's on everyone's mind. And that's the only way you're really given the story, outside of the occasional dialogue between the characters here and there, which is few and far between. So it provides enough to tie the game together and at least give you a general direction as to what you're doing, but it's not like you're going to sit there and want to play this over and over just to hear the story again and again. So as far as this story tying into the gameplay, like what happens in a lot of games, this really doesn't portray much other than simply saying, okay, you 3 are on a quest, have fun. So it kind of ends up being thrown away by its own gameplay at one point, but I kind of feel that wasn't exactly the point of the game to start with.
The strongest point of the game of this game is the gameplay and how it overshadows pretty much everything else. As we said before, switching between the party is a critical element in Trine, and you always are switching between your players to solve different puzzles. Of course, if you are playing with other friends and you have to work together, and this whole teamwork aspect is where Trine really shines, and is all the teamwork and all the tactics is what's really important. As you play through the level, you go through many different stages from a lot of different areas, and it's a whole 15 levels, which is kind of slim, but the experience is at least streamlined. The physics in the game is really great, where the wizard can throw different objects around, and to be able to interplay between the characters is great. The thing where I was most worried about when I picked up this game was I saw that the thieves' grappling hook was used a lot, and people were swinging around and things like that, and I thought that it would be hard to tell the game where to throw the grappling hook all the time, and I thought that would be a problem. But the game's usually pretty good and has a good idea of where everything should go, and most of my qualms were non-existent. One of the greatest things about Trine is the way to do everything your own way. So you'll be able to try different challenges differently. So if you play through the game, there might be different ways to do each puzzle. So while to get over a gap, a wizard might draw a plank and walk across it, or the thief will use the grappling hook to get across. However, sometimes if one of your party members dies in battle or it falls off or something like that, you are left without him until you reach another checkpoint, which is really bad because if the wizard is left in a combat situation and he pretty much has no hope. Fortunately, the game is pretty forgiving and the checkpoints are relatively close together, and it knows when something really difficult just happens, so you can always respawn your friends. Your comrades are very important to completing this game, and not being able to keep them alive could be a very big problem. Trine pulls this off very well, and once you play together for enough time, you'll be able to pull anything off.
Alright, so now we have the graphical aspect, and the first thing when looking at any Trine video is you see they are very good graphics. The pixelations here and there are very nice, and it's very well put together and clean. There isn't any clipping or edges or something that you see. But then also, from just an art standpoint, it's a very stylized gameplay. When you walk into an area, all of the art that's put in there, all of the scenery, the sounds, all of that give you a very distinct feeling of what's going on. So, like, let's look at the last level, which you're going to be seeing a couple clips here of. You see fire, brimstone, you've got skulls and demon heads. The architecture is very sharp and pointed and rigid, and you start to understand the feeling, this is not a very nice place. Whereas if you go and look over at this mushroom forest, things are more rounded. The platforms you're standing on aren't hard, rigid squares. They're these oblong-shaped pieces of wood and such, and it just portrays the exact feeling that's supposed to be going on at the moment, which is very good, because not many games tend to get that. People start to forget that art not only just has to look good, it has to portray a literal emotional feeling to add to the gameplay.
Finally, in the other topics, things I think we should mention is that the life of this game is very short. The 15 levels is slim, and the experience, once it's over, is over. The multiplayer component allows you to maybe play again with a friend, but when I played this, I played through with some of my friends in the first place, so I really don't have any need to go do it alone. Also, this game is relatively glitch-free. There's been a lot of platformers that had problems. We ran into a few glitches, one where Twisted fell through the floor and was walking around underneath on the water, and one where I was